Hello and welcome to AmeriCorps VISTA in the first webinar of your orientation, Countdown to VISTA Service. You are about to embark on a year of AmeriCorps service, and this period before you start service is an opportunity for you to learn more about AmeriCorps service and your benefits, as well as to ensure that this is the right choice for you. I know this is a stressful time in our country with our schedules and daily lives disrupted by the spread of the coronavirus, and you likely have many questions about starting your upcoming service. Today's webinar is designed to give you a great foundation to begin to serve as an AmeriCorps member in general, and will address some specific details that may apply to your situation at this time. Let me add that AmeriCorps is closely monitoring the latest developments related to the coronavirus. There are frequently asked questions posted at nationalservice.gov/coronavirus, and we will continually update these as we move forward. For now, please know that we are so grateful for your service, and we want to help orient you to AmeriCorps VISTA as fully as possible on this webinar. So let's get started. My name is Eric Powell, and I'm joined by Barbara Reynolds. We'll be your hosts today from AmeriCorps VISTA. You will also see our AmeriCorps colleagues, Gina Viner, Christopher Hawks, Jennifer Brooks, and Kyle Banker, as well as our partners at LSI, Jeff Banis and Steve Gray, in the chat in the Q&A. And we truly loved seeing your comments in the chat session before we began about what motivated you to apply to your AmeriCorps position. This is truly an exciting time as you are gearing up to start your AmeriCorps year, and I'm very happy to be with you today.
Hi, this is Barbara Reynolds, and I too am very happy to be on with you and with Eric today. I want to add my welcome as well as really thank you for joining AmeriCorps VISTA. I'm super happy to meet you and looking forward to helping you kick off your service experience this year. I hope your VISTA year will be a powerful one, and I know that Eric and I have a lot of information to share to help you get started. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to start out with just some brief introductions and an overview of the AmeriCorps VISTA program. Then we'll jump into some of the important details of your orientation, including a few major tasks to complete when you start your service next week. We'll also take a close look at some of the benefits that you'll receive and address questions on those benefits. And then we'll wrap up today with a quick reminder about some useful resources for you and try to answer any additional questions you have and ask for feedback on our presentation. So here's an overview of our goals and what we really hope to accomplish by convening everyone today. First and foremost, we asked you to log on to give our AmeriCorps staff a chance to connect with you and to really help ease you into your service year. We also know this webinar can be a great way for you to meet other new AmeriCorps members and start to build connections with colleagues across the country. We'll also take time today to try to reinforce some of the very important details of your AmeriCorps service. We know there's a lot of information coming at you from our office, possibly from your project site or your sponsor. And so Eric and I really want to highlight several critical pieces of information today that are timely for you. And then finally, we want to leave out of today's webinar, leaving you with a really good sense of where to go for more answers, right? We know we just have a little bit of time online with you today. You're likely to have a lot of questions, and we will get to as many as we can. We're going to work hard to do that, and we want you to know where to go after we log off today. So with all of that, Eric, you want to keep us going?
Absolutely. Thank you, Barbara. It is my true pleasure to give you this official welcome to AmeriCorps VISTA. One of the great things is that you are joining a national service program with a very rich history. We have almost 230 AmeriCorps VISTA members beginning service with you this month. And currently, just under 5,000 VISTA members are serving in rural and urban areas in all 50 states and in several U.S. territories and tribal nations. Volunteers in Service to America, what we know as VISTA, has been fighting poverty and building communities for more than 50 years. Our strength comes from the talent, motivation, and energy of our members, much like you. So let me thank you for stepping up to share your skills and your passion to serve our communities. It truly is an honor for me to welcome you on behalf of the AmeriCorps VISTA program. In the chat, go ahead and take a moment to type in your answer to this question. In what city or town will you serve? We know we have many folks on the webinar today, so the chat will move quickly, but please be sure to type your message and select your message to send to all panelists and attendees in the chat. And I see people from all over the country: Atlanta, Georgia, all the way to Fairbanks, Alaska, Hawaii, Knoxville, Tennessee. Never been there, but I've heard it's really cool and it's near mountains. Wisconsin. Oh, I love the state of Wisconsin. Barbara, what other cities are you seeing? Missouri.
I am seeing a number of Tampa Bay citizens, and I wish to congratulate you on the Super Bowl victory. Well done, Tampa Bay. Lots of, saw a Montana a couple minutes ago. Oop, there's a San Francisco. I have not yet seen Baltimore, which is where I am. So I'm looking eagerly to see if there's any Baltimore, any Maryland folks on with us today.
Definitely, yes. That would be great. So if you're from Baltimore, type it in the chat. And I saw Portland, Oregon, home of Tillamook cheddar. I love cheese. Maybe it's because I have cheesy jokes, but anyways. We know that based on your AmeriCorps applications and your service placements that we have members starting out this month in many different communities and many different types of AmeriCorps VISTA projects. So now the next question is, we want to get a sense of how many folks will relocate to serve. In just a second, you'll see a poll appear on your screen, and you should be able to indicate either yes or no. Obviously, it's a straightforward question. It'll be a pretty quick poll, and we just want to get a little bit of more information about you. We're just curious. We know oftentimes quite a few members do decide to relocate from their home of record to another city, another state, another location to serve. And so we're excited to see how many people in this webinar actually are relocating. So we'll give you another 5 or so seconds to respond. And if you're not able to respond, you can type your answer in the chat if you can't actually access the poll. But we'll go ahead and close the poll now because it looks like most people have responded. And from what we can tell, it looks like about 42% of people on this webinar, which is 74 people, are either have relocated or very will soon be relocating. And then the other 58% are not relocating. So that's about standard. It's a good number. And we, of course, want to wish all of you who are relocating or have relocated safe travels and an easy move into your new community and your new environment. That's very important. We know that you will be joining thousands of AmeriCorps VISTA colleagues across the country to fight poverty. The VISTA program mission is to strengthen organizations that fight poverty, and we do that by deploying members to serve in local community agencies. The role of the AmeriCorps VISTA member is to support the organization's mission by providing solutions that enhance efficiency and build capacity by raising money, developing systems, recruiting volunteers, and creating lasting change. So, by serving at a sponsoring organization, you are essential to VISTA's mission of strengthening communities. And speaking of your organization, we have another quick chat question for you. What is your project supervisor's name? Go ahead and type that in the chat, the name of the person who is the direct supervisor of your VISTA project. See a lot of different names coming in. Some names I would not even want to try to pronounce, but they're really cool. But of course, it's important to know who your supervisor is and understand why that is a primary point of contact for you. And if you happen to don't yet know who your supervisor is, I know a few people are not sure or they don't think they've met them yet, that's okay. Typically, your supervisor is the person that you interviewed with for the AmeriCorps position, or it may be the point of contact that you have at the organization. At this stage, there may still be some information to gather, including details about your site and who your supervisor is. So next, we're going to show you an image that shows the AmeriCorps VISTA program structure with key partners that make your service possible. You can see there are several layers here that help support AmeriCorps VISTA projects and VISTA members. First is AmeriCorps headquarters located in Washington, D.C. AmeriCorps has regional offices across the country, and in those offices, AmeriCorps staff review and approve proposals for new VISTA projects, and they also approve the placement of members into those projects. The regional office is a resource for VISTA members who have concerns about their assignment that the supervisor cannot resolve. If you need to, you can reach them by email using the state abbreviation at cns.gov. For example, I saw a lot of you serving in Florida. You could email your office by typing in fl@cns.gov. In the image, you can also see the sponsoring organization is listed along with your supervisor. Your sponsor and supervisor will be your day-to-day support and provide all the details on your project work. And at our AmeriCorps headquarters, you will be supported by the VISTA Training Unit and the VISTA Member Support Unit, or VMSU, among other departments. The VMSU is a helpful resource for questions regarding your benefits, and to help make sense of these organizations, there is an AmeriCorps VISTA Resources and Contacts document available that can be found on the Starting VISTA page of the VISTA campus. You can also find it at the link that you see in the chat now. For your AmeriCorps VISTA service, you are making a 1-year, 365-day full-time commitment to strengthen and support your community. You will strengthen, expand, and increase the reach of anti-poverty organizations and programs, and you will work on projects with staff and volunteers to build capacity in your project and your community. Central to your VISTA service is an important document called your VISTA Assignment Description, or VAD. The VISTA Assignment Description provides the overarching goals of your project. It explains the objectives that you're working towards during your year of service, and it lays out the specific activities that you will complete to accomplish the objectives. All AmeriCorps members have a VISTA Assignment Description, and you can find yours in the My AmeriCorps portal at my.americorps.gov. It is important to know that your VAD was likely written before you were recruited or selected for your project. So sometimes updates may be needed in order for you to dive into your service. Be sure to check in with your supervisor next week and talk about whether any changes would be useful for your VAD. When we meet again on next Tuesday's webinar, we'll go into much more detail about capacity building and the unique nature of your VISTA service. So please make sure you have your VAD by your first day of service.
All right. So now let's move on to the next item on our agenda and talk about the phases of your orientation to the VISTA program. Today's webinar is one part of a multifaceted orientation that all new AmeriCorps VISTA members complete. On the far left of this graphic, you can see the phases of your orientation, and then some of the major tasks are in the blocks to the right of each of those phases. This structure is also reflected in the VISTA member orientation checklist that you received via email. And you can find a link to that checklist in the chat now in case you don't have that email handy. So I know some of you may be starting off from working at home by teleserving, and that is absolutely normal, of course, right now in the time of COVID. And your supervisor will then start providing you your on-site orientation while you're at home, but they'll be doing that as soon as you start to guide you as you get into your year of service. And I definitely want to encourage you, if you have the capability to print out and save this checklist as a hard copy or pin it on your phone so that you can keep a record as you're going through all of your orientation steps. It's a great way to track your progress through each phase of the orientation. And then as you complete each important task, you can just make note of that this week and beyond. So the phases of your VISTA orientation include pre-service, which of course is where we are now, your first day of service, which of course is next week, and then in-service once you get started after next Tuesday. It's good to know that orientation to your AmeriCorps service is an ongoing process, and it involves a number of different people. We know your position is likely to be a complex one because of the nature of VISTA service, and it can take a bit of time and effort to really get you started strong. So let's talk through some of the really important elements of those first two phases of your orientation. So as part of your VISTA member orientation, or VMO, you'll see that acronym all over the place, you are required to complete a few courses and tutorials online. So the online courses are located on the Starting VISTA service page at vistacampus.gov, which is sometimes we just call the campus, if you hear that terminology. And you have to complete those before you begin service, right? So in the next week or so. Please note that the Terms and Conditions course is also linked to your personal account in the AmeriCorps portal, which is that my.americorps.gov account. So once you take the course, the Terms and Conditions course, you'll be asked to accept those conditions of service, and then you can just do that by clicking on the site. And then you have to actually accept the terms and conditions in order to start as a VISTA member. So good to know. You've got to do the terms and conditions, and equally important, you've got to accept those terms and conditions in order to be enrolled. So I know that can be, things like that's a lot to do before next Tuesday. It can be a little overwhelming. And again, you can keep track of your progress on those tutorials and on some of the other tasks that you have on that VMO, that VISTA member orientation checklist. So in addition to the coursework I just mentioned that's posted on the campus, there are also some onboarding forms that we'll need you to complete to get you into the VISTA system. These include a direct deposit form for your living allowance, a federal tax withholding form, an unpaid compensation information form, and then an end of service benefit selection. All of these forms, again, are located on that My AmeriCorps portal site, that my.americorps.gov site. And if you haven't yet completed these, please make a note and plan on doing that right after we log off today, as soon as you can do that once we are finished with our webinar today. We, particularly the member support unit, really need those forms in order to get you officially enrolled in AmeriCorps and start the process of getting you your living allowance and then other service benefits. So there are a number of benefits available to VISTAs, and if you haven't already, definitely want to encourage you to take a look at all of the information that's available to you on the VISTA campus. In just a few minutes, Eric and I will talk through some of the really critically time-sensitive and kind of major benefits we know folks have a lot of questions about, and highlight some of the important details of them. All right, so talking about pre-service to-dos and VMO checklisting, here's one really big to-do item on that orientation checklist, and that is you will be required to undergo a background investigation before you start VISTA service. This just means that you'll need to securely submit information online in order to complete that background check. There's no cost to you for doing this. The thing that we need you to do is just provide information. So you will receive via email instructions for how to get that personal information securely submitted, right? We want to do this very safely over the internet. And so you'll get an email from support@checker.com. You can see the email on the slide now. And when you receive that, respond right away. It is legit, just so you know, it's a real thing from VISTA. Respond right away, provide your information, and then we will be able to have that and start working on your background check. We have to get that from you, and we have to complete this background check in 7 days. So really, really, really critical that you be on the lookout for this and that you respond quickly. This is also a great time for me to encourage you, if you haven't already, double check that your current email address is accurate in the My AmeriCorps portal. You will hear me and Eric say information coming to you via email about 14,000 times on today's webinar. And so we rely on that mode of communication, and we really want to make sure that it's going to the right address. So if you could log into the portal, just double check that for yourself and make sure that it's current. All right, so as I said, we'll need your information to conduct your background check within 7 days. If you aren't able to do that, if for some reason you don't respond, if you're not able to be timely in your response, that could hold up your enrollment. And we really don't want that to happen, right? On the VISTA side, we're just going through this procedurally. We want to get everything taken care of for you. So please just be on the lookout for that. If for any reason you have questions about the process based on what I've just said or what you received via email, please reach out to vistafingerprint@cns.gov. That email is also posted for you in the resources handout, the resources PDF that Eric shared via email. Again, that's vistafingerprint@cns.gov. All right, so the initial submitting of your personal information and conducting the background check is the front end. Once all of that occurs, then the other part of this process is for VISTA, for our staff, to compare the results that we receive on your background check with what you've disclosed in writing on your AmeriCorps application. So you might recall that if it's been a while back, this may be less fresh in your memory, but when you submitted your My AmeriCorps application, there was a section on there that asked you to disclose if you had ever been convicted of a crime. Now, sometimes it happens that folks don't disclose all of the details or they don't answer that section altogether. And that can happen for any number of reasons, right? You may have thought it wasn't relevant. You may have just overlooked it on the application. Any number of reasons that could have occurred. And if that's your particular situation, now is the time to fix that. And there's a super easy way to do it. And this is not, I will tell you, this is not an uncommon experience, right? Like sometimes this just has to be cleaned up routinely for folks that are starting VISTA. So in order to fix that problem, again, the omission of any relevant information on your application, you'll need to fill out something called the member disclosure form. Pretty straightforward. And if you think that's you, if you think you're in this position, or even if you're not entirely sure, please reach out to vistafingerprint@cns.gov and ask them to send you that form. Ask them to send you the member disclosure form for completion. It is definitely better to err on the side of just to be safe than to omit taking this action now. So when on the VISTA side, when we receive results of your background investigation from the FBI, as I said, we'll compare what that report shows with what's on your original application and what you may need to submit right now on that disclosure form, right? And if everything lines up, which most of the time it does, then you won't hear anything back from VISTA, right? No news is good news in this particular task. If for some reason there is a conviction that is reported in the background check that you have not disclosed, again, either on that original application or on the member disclosure form, then AmeriCorps will have extensive follow-up with you and your supervisor to get more details, right? And depending on the specific situation, it's possible that this could delay your enrollment, right? Or this could prevent you from enrolling as a VISTA. And again, we don't want this to happen. There are a number of convictions that bar individuals from serving, but it's a small number and it's a very specific list. Overwhelmingly, we find if we get all of the facts up front before the FBI check is run, and then we collaborate together to make sure the records are clean, that everything is fine. So please, be completely upfront again if this is your specific situation. Err on the side of saying too much or sharing too much, just so we can make sure that we can fully assess the situation and work with you.
Thinking back to almost 14 and a half years ago, I remember I was getting ready for my first day of service, similar to many of you, and I was a little bit nervous, but quite a bit excited. So I'm hoping that the excitement and energy that you have to start service outweighs any nervousness or anxiety, because it will be fun and you'll do great. But we also know that you'll be serving in a professional work environment. And of course, like anything else, you want to set yourself up for success. If you will be serving on site at your project site location, you'll want to make sure that you confirm any details such as the address where you need to report, what time you need to report, how to get into the building, the dress code, where to park if you're driving, or any other special circumstances such as the average commute time, or if you should bring anything with you. Obviously your identification, but if there's any paperwork or other requirements, make sure you check with your supervisor on that. If you have been approved to teleserve, as Barbara said, which means serving from home, until it's safe for you to serve on site, you will also want to confirm a few things such as what time to start on Tuesday, what the schedule is for your remote orientation and training, how to get set up, etc. And if you have not done so already, please make sure that you set your workstation up prior to Tuesday morning. Certainly check with your supervisor around what systems or other things you need access to. And also, if you'll be teleserving at any point, whether you're starting out teleserving or you think because of COVID you may teleserve one day a week, make sure that you complete the teleservice agreement form, which needs to be signed by you and your supervisor. It's fine if you want to do an electronic signature, it's probably easier. And you can find the form on the VISTA campus or through the link in the helpful links document, and you can also find it in the chat. And if you happen to be unable to begin your service on Tuesday, February 16th, make sure that you contact your supervisor or regional office immediately, and also let us know by responding to any of the emails you received from me, Eric Powell. Whatever your situation, don't be afraid to ask questions and reach out to your supervisor. They're there to help you and support you with your onboarding process. As you know, your exciting and joyful first day of service is Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. That day will likely begin your orientation to your project site and your specific duties as a VISTA member. Your supervisor may have prepared a formal agenda for you and scheduled meetings or other activities. And we know that day one schedules vary by project, so please check in with your supervisor about what to expect and what materials you will need on your first day. Along with starting your on-site orientation on Tuesday, AmeriCorps headquarters, Barbara and I, will present your second orientation webinar called Launching Your VISTA Service. We'll be back online with you for the launching webinar at the same time, 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Eastern. And as with this webinar, you will receive an email with participation details. Also, on next week's webinar, we'll go into a little bit more deeper information about the VISTA program, your VISTA assignment description, and member resources. And we'll also have time for more questions and answers to make sure that you are in good shape for your first week of service. On Tuesday's webinar, we will also administer the oath of service, officially swearing you into VISTA service.
All right, so next we're going to take a closer look at another critical piece of the AmeriCorps VISTA program, and that is the terms and conditions of your service that I mentioned just a few moments ago, one of those important tutorials. So as you know, and as I reminded you, there's a required course on the VISTA campus that covers the rules of participation in VISTA. What is allowable while you're serving and as an AmeriCorps member, what's not allowable, the rules of the road, if you will. So since AmeriCorps VISTA members are bound by a variety of laws, regulations, and other guidance, we want to make sure that you understand them as well as you can now and from day one of your service so that you'll feel comfortable in your VISTA role. If you're hearing my voice right now and you have not, or you have already completed the Terms and Conditions course on the campus, then I say thank you. Thank you very much. Well done, you. This next activity then should be an easy review for you. And if you are hearing my voice and you have not yet completed the course, then hopefully what Eric and I will talk through now will really help underscore some of the important bits that are in that Terms and Conditions course. So here's what we're going to do. Eric and I will present a few scenarios and ask you to indicate yes or no in the chat, meaning, is this okay for a VISTA member to do, or is it not okay? And you can type in a yes, no, you can type in a Y or N, whatever is the easiest for you to do in the chat. All right, first scenario, dun, dun, dun. I can voice my political opinions using social media where my profile identifies me as an AmeriCorps member. So per the terms and conditions, what do you think about that? Are VISTAs allowed to do this? And I see that the chat is alive with answers. Lots and lots of answers are scrolling by. And I'm seeing, Eric, I don't know about you, but I'm seeing a pretty good mix of yeses, nos, a few nopes are in there. Mm-hmm. I'm loving it. I think I saw a no with a whole lot of O's at the end, which is also delightful. Good mix though. Okay, all right. Would refrain, yes, very politely stated. Thank you for that. So let's see the answer. Let's see what the terms and conditions say to us. And I'm gonna say a little bit about this for context. So yes, technically, given the scenario that I just read, you can have AmeriCorps listed on your personal social media profile, right? So this scenario is about your personal social media life. And of course, in your personal life, you can voice your own personal political opinions as part of that. However, the distinctions here, the important parts, are that you can't represent yourself as a spokesperson for AmeriCorps, as a spokesperson for VISTA, or for your sponsor, right? Pretty straightforward. In your personal social media life, that is a restriction. Also, you can, as I said, voice your opinions, political and otherwise, on your personal social media and on your own time. We want to make sure that if you are engaging in that kind of activity, that you're not doing it while you're serving at your site. Again, assuming you're physically at your VISTA project site, that while you're on the VISTA clock, as it were, you're not living in your personal social media life and certainly not voicing political opinions at that time. Also want to make sure you keep really separate the use of any equipment, like the computer at your site or the Wi-Fi network. Just really keep a nice barrier between your personal social media life and what you're doing at your project site. Also important, I think, if your social media life is quite active and you do engage in political posts or other type of advocacy, we ask that you don't put your logo in your profile picture, right? So that we're trying to avoid that at a glance, someone might see a personal post that you share alongside a visual, right? An image that aligns you with VISTA. At a glance, I think in a quick scroll through social media, folks may not understand the distinction between your personal account and that logo. So we ask you to try to avoid that if you can. And then when in doubt, really just try to keep your AmeriCorps service and your political activity completely separate as much as you can. That would be the best.
And here's the next scenario, or scenario, if that's how you pronounce it: potato, tomato, tomato, tomato. I can demonstrate in a political rally. Per the research you've done with the AmeriCorps VISTA terms and conditions, what say you to this scenario? I'm seeing a lot of yeses, a lot of whys, a couple of nos. Looks like most people feel like the answer is yes. I see it for sure. I love the confidence. It's great to see. A couple of more
I think
yeses.
there was a you betcha. Yeah, there was a you betcha
Nice.
that rolled through.
Nice. That might be from my friend in Wisconsin. So let's see. I could but would not. Okay, so people are adding some context. This is great. Well, let's see what the answer to this scenario is. Yes, you can demonstrate in a political rally, again, on your own time, as long as you are not identified as an AmeriCorps member or perceived to be an AmeriCorps member. The perceived to be an AmeriCorps member is very important because some of you may be serving in a small town or a local or rural area, perhaps where you are not necessarily wearing your AmeriCorps polo shirt or other gear, but people may happen to know that you are an AmeriCorps member. Similar to what Barbara was talking about with political activity, if there's a perception there, it could be a problem. So when in doubt about a specific activity, it's always best to avoid it initially and then consult with your supervisor or your AmeriCorps regional office for clarification so you can at least see if there are next steps before doing anything.
Great. All right. So here is the next one. I can ask people to donate money to a partisan political candidate as long as it's on my own time and I'm not identified as an AmeriCorps member. What say you good people? Yes or no on this one per the VISTA terms and conditions? What are your thoughts? All right. Again, the chat is rolling. I see again a few notes. Good mix of no's and yeses here, I think. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Maybe. I saw a maybe go by, right? Okay. All right. Good mix. Good mix. I think so. Question mark. All right. Well, let's see the answer. And this actually, this is a really important one. Hence the bold red no that's on the screen in front of you. And well, let me break this down for you. So the answer is no. You cannot raise money, funds, on behalf of a partisan political candidate at any time during your service year, right? And this means, unlike the other scenarios that Eric and I were talking through with you, Doesn't matter if you're off the clock, if you're off duty, doesn't matter if you're at your own home, doesn't matter where you are. While you're enrolled as a VISTA member, there's a federal law that blankets your year of service, a law called the Hatch Act. And it prohibits, right, the rule is a hard rule, no fundraising for partisan political candidates at any level, right? Doesn't mean just presidential, congressional candidates. It means at any level. So again, big red no, big deal. Very, very important that everyone knows this and is incredibly mindful of it. Now, I will say as an aside, because I imagine that you have quite a lot of passion and energy and support a number of issues, right, or causes in your community, and will likely want to do that in the year ahead. And I support you in that. You can certainly raise money for issues or causes on your own time and when you're not identified as an AmeriCorps member, right? So the off the clock, no logos, no visible affiliation rule apply if you're raising money for an issue or a cause. It's the candidate that is the big no-no in this scenario.
So here's the last one we have for you today. And I think everyone is going to get this one correct. I can have outside employment and or earn additional income while serving as an AmeriCorps member. What do you think? See a lot of yeses and yeps and why. I'm glad that that's not a question of why. Yes, with permission. People are adding lots of clarification and details, so long it does not conflict with your service. Yeah, I won't belabor the point. You all have it correct. So the answer is yes. You may have outside part-time employment while serving in AmeriCorps. And as many of you mentioned, there are some key rules to keep in mind. Of course, the outside employment must not conflict with your project, service, or hours, nor can it conflict with any applicable law or AmeriCorps VISTA program requirements or policies. Also, under no circumstances may any AmeriCorps VISTA member be an employee of or a contractor for the sponsor or VISTA project to which they are assigned to serve. Also, as many of you noted, clearly you've done the terms and conditions, your supervisor must approve and agree that the outside work will not interfere with the AmeriCorps project. If it does interfere, you may be asked to either end your outside employment or to end AmeriCorps service, which of course we don't want to happen. So please follow these rules and regulations. As we mentioned, only part-time outside employment is allowed while serving as an AmeriCorps VISTA member. And you do have to request and receive approval for outside employment from your project supervisor. And that's whether you have a part-time job now that you think you'll be continuing into your service, or you think after you start service, you may start a part-time job. You'll need to fill out the outside employment request form that can be found on the VISTA campus, and we'll post it in the chat in a minute. And you can, of course, find more information regarding the outside employment policy on the VISTA campus, and you can just search outside employment for the policy. So thank you very much for going through those scenarios with us. We know that while the terms and conditions of your AmeriCorps service contain many rules, we also know that these 4 issues in particular raise a lot of questions for new members. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable getting started as an AmeriCorps member. So again, please don't hesitate to reach out to your project supervisor or the AmeriCorps regional office if you have more questions, especially specific questions about these activities. And don't forget, if you haven't done so already, you will need to make sure that you complete the full terms and conditions course and indicate that you've completed it in your my.americorps.gov account.
All right. So next, we're going to take a closer look at some of the benefits you'll receive as a VISTA member. Again, Eric and I want to draw your attention to a few key items today because they're time sensitive. And as I mentioned before, there's a whole lot of written material about all of the member benefits on the VISTA campus. So even things we're not going to touch on today. All right, so this is an image of the page on the campus that has that overview, all of those details on your benefits. Some of them, such as the living allowance, are available to all VISTA members. Other benefits may only apply to some folks, depending on your particular situation, for instance, you may or may not qualify for the child care assistance benefit. Again, please, when you can, review these carefully. And then right now, let's cover some of the big items that really generate a lot of questions from folks. First, let's talk about the living allowance, right? The thing that does apply to everyone all the time. On this page, on the campus, on the benefits page, you can find a whole bunch of details on the living allowance. There are links at the bottom of this page under resources. There are things like tips for how to make the most of the living allowance, how to really stretch those VISTA dollars. You can also find a calendar that shows how and when the living allowance payments are dispersed. And you can also find the specific chart of the living allowance rates of pay. So good for you to know that the dollar amount for the living allowance for VISTA members varies across the country. It varies because of the cost of living within certain jurisdictions, right? So there's no single living allowance payment. It will vary. And for your particular location, you're going to want to find out what that rate of pay is if you haven't already. So definitely check out the link that's highlighted here for you to confirm your rate. This link as well to this particular page and that chart of the living allowance rates was also included in the helpful links handout for today's session. All right, so quick question here while we're talking about living allowance payments. Do you know when you'll get your first check? When's that first living allowance payment going to come to you? If you know, please type it in the chat right now. All right, I'm seeing some early March 4th, March 5th, March 6th. Yep, some other ones. Lots of agreement around the month of March. I'm feeling that you are feeling confident about that. All right, so here it is. You are all correct in some way that it is, in fact, the month of March 5th. To be exact, good for you to know that most VISTA members are paid directly by us, by AmeriCorps, and that those payments come out every 2 weeks on Fridays. Now, it is true across the nation that there are some VISTA members who receive that living allowance payment directly from their sponsor organization. So if you don't know which situation you're in specifically, please make a note of that to confirm with your supervisor next week, right? The question is, are you going to get your living allowance directly from headquarters, from AmeriCorps headquarters, or is it going to come from your project, from your sponsor? Because if it's from your sponsor, they may have a slightly different calendar of getting you your payment. So I want to make sure that you know that as soon as you can so that you know what to expect. And again, your supervisor should be able to confirm that for you, either themselves because they know, or they can find out at the organization. So good to know that federal taxes are going to be withheld from your living allowance. However, state taxes are not. So this is very, very important for your future tax planning. You're going to need to determine how much state tax you're going to owe. And I really encourage you, again, once you start next week, once you start getting into your year, that you explore on your own how to find out the best way to determine your state tax burden. You can do that in a number of ways. And I think it's really an important detail for you soonish, but not urgent for you this week. Good to know that if you are going to be receiving your living allowance from AmeriCorps headquarters, right, so from us at headquarters, you'll be able to see your living allowance statements, again, in that portal, that MyAmeriCorps portal at myamericorps.gov. If you receive your payment directly from your sponsor, you'll get your pay statements from them. So again, important clarification question next week once you start your service. All right, so in order for us to process that living allowance, we need your direct deposit information, right? It's one of those forms that you are looking at as part of your onboarding. So cannot overemphasize how important it is to double, triple check yourself that the routing and account information that you give us is accurate. I know this is a really simple thing to do, and I also know a lot of times when you got a lot on your plate and you're in a hurry, it can be super easy to leave off a number or do something slightly wrong. And we don't want that to happen because as part of the federal government, it can really Any problem with setting up your living allowance can take several weeks to resolve. So we do not want that to happen. You can see on the slide in front of you, if you haven't had to fill out a direct deposit form in the past, this is how you do it. You'll just gather your bank routing number and your account number. The image here shows a check. If you have a paper check, you can certainly get that information online as well, or from your bank directly in person if you go in, or call in if you don't want to go in person. But definitely make sure that you pull these two things, you double, triple check that information. Super, super important to get that done correctly. All right, so that is the direct deposit.
We know that there's lots of other benefits to discuss, but right now we'll quickly segue into talking about your end of service benefit, since after you successfully complete your year of service, you are eligible for one of the two benefits, either the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award or the cash stipend, as you can see on the screen. Quickly, the Education Award can be used to pay any qualified federal student loans or to pay for education at any Title IV institution, which is an institution that accepts federal funds. You do have 7 years to use the Education Award, and you do not have to use it all at one time. And with the AmeriCorps VISTA program, you cannot transfer it to anyone else. With the cash stipend, it is paid out via direct deposit at the very end of your service. The most important detail to know is that if you are unsure which benefit to choose, if you're still trying to decide, unsure, I suggest that you select the Education Award, because then you have until the end of your 10th month of service to switch to the cash stipend. Because you need to know that once you start service, you are not able to switch from the cash stipend to the Education Award. So just make sure you're aware that when you select the cash stipend and start service, it's a final decision. But if you do select the Education Award, you have a little bit of flexibility up until your 10th month of service. Don't forget to check out more specific details about Education Award eligibility, institutions that may match the Education Award, and other critical pieces of information to know on vistacampus.gov, as well as at AmeriCorps.gov. And we know, kind of related to Education Award and cash stipend, because it's all related to money, we know that many of you may have student loans. And if you do, there are ways that you can postpone repayment of federally backed student loans during your year of service. So if you chose the Education Award, you can request federal forbearance for your federally backed student loans, which means that you do not make monthly loan payments during your year of service. And through your AmeriCorps account, you can ask the National Service Trust to pay the accrued interest on your federal loan after you complete your year. Just be aware that the interest payment is considered taxable income. Also, federal loan forbearance is not guaranteed, but you must initiate the process by submitting a loan forbearance request in your my.americorps.gov account. You will be able to do this approximately 1 week into your year of service, so that's about 2 weeks from now, using a new My Education Award link that will appear in your my.americorps.gov account. If you ended up deciding to select the end of service cash stipend, or if you have private student loans, you may request loan deferment, which means that you apply directly with your lender, giving the reason of economic hardship, and you may be able to have your accrued interest paid by the Federal Department of Education if you have federally subsidized loans that are deferred. Also, it's possible that you could have a portion of your Perkins loan forgiven. Loan deferment is not guaranteed, and it may not be offered by all lenders, so you should check with your lender specifically for details. Neither loan deferment or loan forbearance will happen automatically, and again, you will need to request them through the appropriate process, either in the My AmeriCorps portal or with the bank or institution that holds your loan. As a reminder, more details on everything we just covered, go to the Education Award tutorial on the AmeriCorps website, which, as you can see on the screen, nationalservice.gov/resources/edaward. And for a quick reminder about the federal forbearance process, after you started service, you can go into your My AmeriCorps account and submit your loan forbearance request with AmeriCorps. Again, it is your responsibility to submit the request and check on its status. And at the end of your year, It's also your responsibility to submit any education award payment requests, which basically is using part or all of your education award, as well as any interest accrual payment requests from the National Service Trust.
All right, so next up, we're going to look at healthcare benefits. Again, I know this can be a particularly critical topic for a lot of folks. So starting out, good to know, AmeriCorps VISTA offers two different health benefit options. One is for individuals who have health coverage, like a private insurance policy or Medicaid right now, and the other is for members who don't have health coverage now. So if you are in the category of folks that have health insurance or other coverage, then you're eligible to enroll in the VISTA Healthcare Allowance, which provides reimbursement up to $8,500 for qualifying out-of-pocket healthcare expenses. That's a mouthful. You can use the healthcare allowance for out-of-pocket expenses like co-payments for office visits, for doctor's appointment visits, for services or prescriptions, for medications and medical supplies, and for meeting your annual deductible, right? The annual deductible you have in that coverage. The allowance will not reimburse you for the cost of buying insurance, however. It won't help you pay any monthly premiums if that's something that you're looking at. By contrast, if you do not have any health coverage right now, then you're eligible to enroll in the AmeriCorps VISTA Health Benefit Plan. Again, very similar terminology, but some differences that are important here. The benefit plan is a safety net plan that is meant to cover your basic healthcare needs while you're serving in VISTA, right? It covers a lot of basic services with very low copays, but it does have some limitations. And unfortunately, one of them is that it does not cover pre-existing conditions. There is, however, no deductible for the health benefit plan, so that's really good to know. Both of these options include limited dental and vision benefits, right? So either the health allowance or the benefit plan have limited vision and dental. There's also a telehealth or teledoctor service for phone and video healthcare, so that you can get online with licensed and certified doctors, which I don't know about you, but that's been quite a delight during the time of COVID. So that's a great, great benefit generally and certainly right now. Both of those benefit options are free. Nothing is deducted from your living allowance, no matter which option you choose, right? There's no cost to you for either, again, that healthcare allowance or the benefit. And one important limitation is that both of those options only cover you. They don't cover any dependents. So in order to make a selection and choose one of the benefits, you have to enroll, right? There is no automatic enrollment that we can do for you because we, of course, don't know your personal circumstance. So in about 2 weeks, again, you're going to get an email. I know that's not a surprise. An email from an organization called IMG, and it's the healthcare administrator, the health plan administrator for VISTA. So again, it's legit. If you see an email from IMG, it really is true. And they'll ask you to give some information and make a selection about the benefit that you would like. Good to know as a side note here, given the current situation around testing for COVID-19, and if you're not sure where you are in the country and what the situation is for testing or testing resources, we definitely encourage you to reach out to the CDC website and see what they can tell you. That's the go-to place that we're looking at to maintain our current information on COVID-19, and we encourage you to do the same as well. Want to encourage you to follow any guidance you see from the CDC about who should be tested and then how to get tested. If for some reason you find yourself in a situation where it's recommended, then it's good to know that testing is covered under the VISTA plans, right? Under the health benefit as well as the healthcare allowance plans. And if for some reason, I am crossing my fingers, this will not apply to anyone hearing my voice. If for some reason you are diagnosed and become ill, both of the VISTA plans will provide the medically necessary care for you. So illness with COVID-19 is covered by both options provided by VISTA. So if you're in a situation where you want to seek coverage through the health insurance marketplace, you can take advantage of a special enrollment period of 60 days from the start and end dates of your VISTA service, right? So to find out more about that and see if that's a resource for you, go to healthcare.gov to look for plans, shop around, see what subsidies you may qualify, what resources are available to you, again, depending on your particular situation. To enroll for these benefits during that special enrollment period, you will need to contact, again, the marketplace, the health insurance marketplace. All right, so that's a lot of information. Again, remember, lots of written details about this on the VISTA campus, if any of that got a little confusing. Next up, I do want to talk a bit about other public assistance benefits that exist and how they may be impacted by your AmeriCorps VISTA service and what that means for you. So if you personally are already receiving public assistance such as TANF or LIHEAP, then your VISTA Living Allowance or any other payments you receive from the VISTA program should not affect the assistance you receive. Again, should not. Likewise, if you apply for new public assistance, then your living allowance should not be factored in when determining the level of benefits you receive. Again, the living allowance should not impact new public assistance benefits. There is one big exception to this, and that is in the SNAP program, or the program that was formerly called food stamps. If you enroll in SNAP now, or at any time during your year of service, your living allowance and other VISTA payments will be counted as income in calculating your eligibility and your benefit level. So that's if you enroll now or in the future. If you've already enrolled and you've already been receiving SNAP benefits, then your benefits should remain unchanged, right? That's the expectation, is that your benefits won't go down once you begin receiving the living allowance. Having said all of that, as you likely know, that public benefits are managed by state government entities or local county or city entities. And unfortunately, AmeriCorps and VISTA don't have any role in the administration in determining eligibility and denying eligibility, nothing to do with administering those public benefits. So we just wanted to give you the information about what we know to be true about the VISTA benefits and their impact on public programs, so that you'll have that information when you speak with a caseworker for specific advice in your own area, right? In your particular location and in your particular situation. So depending on where you are, it's possible that some of the state offices or the local offices are really overwhelmed right now, given the pandemic and other challenges. So we just want to encourage you that if this is an area that you need more information on, to definitely start soon, start collecting information soon, and expect that there's likely to be a wait. There could be a bit of a delay in getting you the information quickly to help you with this area. So I will say there will be a resource available in the My AmeriCorps portal for you. In just about 2 weeks, you'll be able to go into the system and access something called your service letters. And you can see on the slide now where exactly in the portal you will be able to access those, right, in about 2 weeks. You'll need those letters when you want to go into any office and apply for public assistance, right? This is the formal documentation that shows you're enrolled in VISTA, and it should cite the authority in this letter. It will say, and here's the legal reason why the VISTA benefits should not count, right? And you'll really, really want to make sure that you have that service letter as you explore what resources are available to you.
And continuing with the benefits theme, as an AmeriCorps VISTA member, you have certain leave benefits available during your year of service. As you probably know, you have 10 days of personal leave and 10 days of sick leave available to you. But please make sure to read the VISTA member handbook in all its details, because there are specific time periods that you are permitted and not permitted to use your leave. Additionally, you certainly can observe the national holidays that are recognized by your site. For example, some sites observe Labor Day as a day off. So then you would also have that day off, but you do not get excused leave for federal holidays that are not recognized by your site. If your site does not give its staff a holiday for Veterans Day, then you are expected to either serve on that day or use personal leave. You and your supervisor are responsible for monitoring your time and attendance, and then you will send any requests that you have to use your leave to your direct supervisor. And AmeriCorps VISTA members do have other benefits available to them. As we mentioned, some of them may not apply to you. Some of them apply only to certain members, such as relocation and childcare. If you've relocated more than 50 miles from your home of record to your service site, or if you will be relocating within 45 days, you may qualify for a relocation travel allowance and a one-time settling in allowance. If you're eligible for financial travel support, you should have already received communication from the VISTA Member Support Unit, which includes a relocation form for you to complete and return. If you did relocate or you plan to relocate more than 50 miles to your service site, and if you have not yet received an email confirmation, or if you have any questions about the relocation form, you can inquire by emailing vmsu@cns.gov. In addition, AmeriCorps VISTA offers a child care benefit, of course, to members who qualify. And to qualify, they must meet specific eligibility requirements, such as household income limits, and you must be the parent or legal guardian of a child under the age of 13 who lives with you. Definitely be sure to check out the details and all the application information at AmeriCorpsChildCare.com. Barbara and I have covered a lot of information so far. And as you've heard, as an AmeriCorps member, you have access to and probably want to access many benefits during your year. We do hope that this has given you a better idea of how to find more information about these benefits, where you can go to find more information and answers to your questions, and also what action steps are needed to access those benefits. So we'll now take a couple of minutes to answer some questions that you've submitted in the Q&A. In a minute, I'll turn to Barbara to see what questions have started to come up initially. And we'll pull out the ones that should apply to most everyone, because we know some of you have very specific questions, but we want to answer questions that seem like they're applicable to the majority of you on this session. And then our colleagues will continue to answer questions in the Q&A until we wrap up the webinar today. So Barbara, what questions do you see that we can start with?
Sure. Yeah, Eric, I think there's some really great questions in the Q&A. It looks like our colleagues, Jen, Kyle, Gina, and Chris have been knocking them out. Just at a quick glance, I see a few folks ask the same question. So I think those are probably useful to bring to everyone's ears. There were a number of questions asked a few minutes ago when we were talking about the living allowance, questions asked about state taxes and how folks are supposed to figure out their state tax burden, I think is a variation on that question. Do you mind just repeating that or reviewing it?
Sure, and there's one other quick thing I'll add, but as a reminder, federal taxes are withheld. We do not deduct state taxes because our system is not built to handle that, and everyone has a unique situation. So if you're unsure if you will owe state taxes, two things. One, first, quickly keep in mind that especially if you have part-time outside employment, that also factors into your annual income. So that would also factor into whether or not you may owe state taxes. But also, we recommend that you check in either with the comptroller or your state tax representative or whoever may do your taxes, whether it's an online system or an actual person, just to find out. They'll be able to give you specific details about your household income and any nuances that you would need to know. I know it used to be that most VISTAs did not have to pay state taxes, but we can't actually answer that because every situation is different. So definitely check in with your state tax comptroller or tax preparer.
Yep. Yeah, I know in Maryland, our comptroller website is really helpful. It has a number of different resources. So depending on where you are, as Eric said, that could be helpful. Yeah, there are a bunch of variations on questions about student loans. Folks are curious if some of the discussion at the federal level about forgiveness of student loans or the freeze on student loans, how that impacts them. And I don't know, Eric, if there's anything there we want to highlight or anything in particular that we want to say about that.
It's a great question, and I'll only add that, as many people mentioned, you are correct that we, as the AmeriCorps VISTA program and even the larger AmeriCorps agency, don't control federal taxes. Certainly, I would say if you do have federal student loans, be sure to check not only your lender's website, but all the information that's out there about any statuses or temporary relief of information, because we do want you to get the information that you need, but we know it is changing, especially in light of COVID and everything else. So the best thing to do is be in touch directly with your loan lender to find out if they know of anything that they're doing or from a larger federal level so they can speak to your specific situation.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like the state taxes, right? It really is so personal to each VISTA, depending on what kind of loans you have and where you are, that the lender is definitely, I would assume, would be the best starting point for getting specific answers. Along those lines, a number of folks, I think we saw a couple in the chat and in the Q&A as well, are asking about the health benefits and the kinds of things that may or may not be covered, like the type of health situations or mental health situations that folks might have. And Eric, I just wondered if what your advice would be for folks to get those, again, those kind of personal answers for themselves. What's the best way to do that?
So a couple weeks ago, I went onto the AmeriCorpsVista.imglobal website and I further explored the member guide. Each of the two healthcare benefit options on that website have a very thorough member guide. And I was curious what information had been updated. And there is a lot of information in there that answers questions about if mental health is covered or this scenario or that scenario. So I would first recommend taking a look at that, because it even goes into detail about if you need to go to a pharmacy and get a prescription, there's specific language you need to use so that the pharmacy knows what type of coverage it is. That would be my first recommendation. Then, of course, if you have your own health coverage, obviously you should check in with your health insurance or health coverage provider, just so that they know your specific situation in your account. But all that information, as well as the contact information for the International Medical Group, you can certainly call them. They're experts in this field. I am not, so please do not ask me any healthcare questions. They're there to help you and make sure you can get through this process as well.
Great. Yeah, it feels like variations of on the theme here, that a lot of folks have very personal, individual questions, and that there's going to be a little bit of a few steps to take to get to the experts, right, who can give you personally the best answers for you. From our side, we want to make sure that you've got the connections. You've got the link to the website, the phone number, et cetera, just so you can take those actions. I think that's really our big goal, is just for you to feel comfortable knowing who's my next, the next person I'm going to raise this question with.
And I'm just going to quickly add in, I saw one really important question. A lot of people were saying, oh, we keep hearing you talk about Tuesday, February 16th being our first day of service. And I did just post a comment in the chat. That is because Monday, February 15th is President's Day, a federal holiday. So we are closed and many projects are closed. So your first official day as a VISTA member, including when you join the required 3 p.m. Eastern launching your VISTA service webinar, is actually Tuesday, February 16th. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, thanks for that, Eric. And apparently that's also Mardi Gras. So that's pretty fun. Pretty fun Tuesday, right? All the way around.
Nice.
So I don't have any other kind of generalizable questions. I think, again, lots of individual ones. You guys, thank you for typing those in the Q&A. Thanks to our colleagues and the member support unit and our colleague Chris Hawks for being the answerers to those direct questions. The Q&A is going to stay open a few more minutes. So if you haven't had a chance to type in your questions, please feel free to do so. But Eric, on the this section of our agenda, I think we're pretty well covered.
Great, thank you. And in addition to what Barbara said, just a reminder, you can get many answers to your questions. You probably don't want questions to your answers. You can get answers to your questions on the VISTA campus and many other places as well. And of course, on next Tuesday's webinar, we'll have a little bit more time to address different and additional questions that you have. But right now, we're going to turn our attention to some online resources that you have, a couple of reminders for this week, and a few closing remarks.
Great. Yeah. So thank you again, as Eric said, for your questions, for talking all that through. We will have a similar open Q&A time on our next meeting next Tuesday, and can address more questions if there's still someone's lingering, if you haven't found answers, et cetera. So I want to just talk a little bit now about the websites that have figured prominently today. You, again, have seen these on the slides. Eric and I have talked quite a lot about them, and you've probably seen them referenced in many of the emails that have been coming your way from AmeriCorps. So if you haven't already, please bookmark the 2 sites that you can see here so you can easily and quickly access them at any time in your service. So as a reminder, again, just restating the AmeriCorps, the My AmeriCorps portal is at my.americorps.gov. And you may also hear it referred to as the portal. It's all the same thing, and that's where you applied to be an AmeriCorps member, where you complete that direct deposit form and the other onboarding forms, where you're going to get your service letter for public assistance, like lots of action happening in the portal. Again, that's also in a few weeks where you'll be able to see your living allowance statements if you're paid directly from headquarters. And then you can see some other information and request other benefits that we've discussed today. And then the second website, again, to keep at your fingertips is the VISTA campus or the campus, and that's at vistacampus.gov. This is the website where you complete your onboarding coursework and tutorial. And I really want to encourage you, as you can in the next few weeks, to really mosey through the VISTA campus early and often. Go beyond, we've really emphasized today the benefits, of course, because of the timing in your year. There's a ton of really good information on the campus that can help you once you get in, once you are signed up for all your benefits, and once you start serving. So I just think it's a really great resource to help you navigate your year and really look at additional training opportunities and information. You can see on the screen, there's a learning resource section just to give you a sense of the breadth of information that's available to you on the campus. And then a couple other really cool features you can see highlighted here. There's a link to VISTA forums where you can chat amongst yourself with VISTAs in different locations, and also a map where you can see folks are serving. And I think these are always 2 features that new VISTAs are really interested in when they're starting and can be useful throughout your year.
And then in the few minutes we have remaining, we want to remind you about the coursework, the onboarding forms, and the criminal history check, if I could talk, that are due. And of course, be sure to use the VISTA member orientation checklist to keep track of all the things that you accomplish through your required pre-service work. And then before you jump off the session, just a couple of final slides. We do want to ask for your feedback. We truly, truly, truly value your input, your suggestions, your ideas, as well as how Barbara and I did on this webinar, how the content was. So please take just a couple of minutes to click on the link in the chat and input your feedback. We greatly appreciate it, and we'll take a look at it once it's all submitted. So with that, I'll quickly review our objectives. Today, Barbara and I really hope that we've started to build some new connections and put some faces to names, but also that we helped clarify some of the complexity of starting your AmeriCorps service. We know it's nervous, but it's also exciting. And we know it's a very busy time for you, especially if you're relocating, ending a job, trying to transition into VISTA service, and there's so much information available. We really hope that today's discussion helped clarify some of the AmeriCorps requirements, and it helped you to know where to find information quickly. So on behalf of Barbara and I and our entire team in the chat, our webinar presenters, thank you so much for joining us on today's webinar. From all of us here at AmeriCorps, we truly are excited and eager for you to join the AmeriCorps team officially next Tuesday. And speaking of next Tuesday, we look forward to seeing you Tuesday, February 16th at 3 p.m. Eastern on your first day of service for our second orientation webinar, Launching Your VISTA Service. Have a great rest of your week. This concludes today's presentation. Go forth and be well.